Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's workshop. It's good to see you all again. My name is Brian Cofrancesco. I'm the District Leadership Development Coordinator and a member of the Kiwanis Club of Meriden. We are proud to be welcoming you to our 24th session in our virtual workshop series. Big round of applause. We're excited to keep these going. We hope you're enjoying these sessions and that you'll encourage other members in your club to continue to join us. We are moving forward into June every Wednesday at 7:00 p.m. If any of your members are not receiving our emails, you can contact our education committee at education@newenglandkiwanis.org, and Elyse will drop that email address into the chat. And just send us an email and we'd be happy to send along our most recent e-blast. A reminder that all of our workshops do have the potential to count on your secretary's report for interclub credit. So if your club has enough members to attend, a reminder to report your interclub to your secretary, and then let your secretary know how many clubs were in attendance at the workshop. And to do that, you can do one of three things. One, you can follow in the chat. I see folks are starting to introduce themselves and their clubs, and you can write down the names of the clubs you see. Another option is you can click the ellipses, the ... next to the chat, and click Save Chat. And once we're finished tonight, a transcript of the chat will download. So you can go through and write down the names of the clubs. Or three, you can take a look in our Google Drive of resources, and that is in your confirmation email from this morning towards the bottom. Our committee's interclub liaison, David Griffin, takes attendance every week. Thank you to David. It's a big task. And he helps compile all that information to make it easier for your secretaries to track, and we upload that attendance to the Google Drive folder. Before we start tonight, a reminder to please keep yourself muted. That helps assure that we have an uninterrupted presentation. And we do invite you to keep your cameras on if you feel comfortable doing so. For optimal viewing, you can change your Zoom view to speaker view, and you can do that by going to the top right of your screen and clicking on view. You may be in gallery view, which is kind of the Brady Bunch style. Speaker view will let you see the one person who is talking at a time. If you do have questions during tonight's workshop, you can post them in the chat. You can send them to me and we'll grab them at the end. If you're joining us on Facebook Live this evening, you can leave your question in the stream and we'll also get those at the end for our Q&A session. So with that, we are ready to get started. Those of you who've been joining us for the last few weeks know that we've brought you membership-focused workshops this month. In observation of, as many of you have heard, May is Kiwanis Membership Month. And we've talked about a whole bunch of topics. We started with club culture, we moved on to marketing your club for members, and last week we talked about recruiting new members, specifically millennials. But once you've recruited new members, are you done with your recruitment? And of course the answer is no. No, right? So tonight, past governor and education committee technology expert, Elise Dynorphia, and I are going to be presenting to you about new member orientations. And we really believe it's so important that new Kiwanians learn about our organization and our impact, both locally and globally, so that they begin their Kiwanis experience really feeling informed and inspired. And we're going to provide you with tips, best practices, and what's worked well for us over the years in presenting new member orientations. And in the end, we're also going to share a collection of free Kiwanis resources that can help you and your club. So our goal is that you leave inspired and equipped to lead an orientation in your own club as you recruit new members or even refresh some of your current members on Kiwanis. So with that, I hope you will join me in welcoming my co-presenter, Elise Dynorphia.
Hi, everybody. We are very excited to have this conversation because it's literally the next step in the process, right? We talked about recruiting members, marketing to new members, but we need to talk about one avenue for keeping them. And we keep members when we teach them about our organization so they see value in it. So we're really excited to be able to present this, and we're going to give you guys a lot of tips and tricks, like Brian said. But we're going to start off with a poll here. We're going to ask you a couple questions. So our first question, is how many years have you been in Kiwanis? So you should have something pop up on your screen. So the options are 0 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 15 years, 16 to 20 years, and 20 plus years. I'm in the 16, oh, I should say 16 to 19. That's my error. I'm in the 16 to 19 year category right now, but in September, I will be joining the 20-year category. So I'm excited to be with 28% of you. It looks like we have just about everybody in the poll. So we're gonna end the poll. Ooh. Okay, so it looks like we have a pretty good spread of members here. It looks like the majority of our members are 20 plus years in our organization, which is really exciting, but it looks like we have a fair number that are 10 years or less. So that's exciting. Okay, we are going to do our second question. Our second question is, if you remember, for some of you 20 plus members, maybe you don't remember, but were you offered a new member orientation when you joined Kiwanis? Yes, no, or can't remember. We have just about everybody. Okay, it looks like we have everybody there. So it looks like the majority of people, well, I guess if we did math, maybe yes, or I can't remember, probably mathematically is more, but majority of people have not had a new member orientation or can't remember it. So it probably wasn't a very memorable new member orientation. Okay, let's move on to our next question. When was the last time your club offered a new member orientation? Did you offer it in the last year? Did you offer it perhaps 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 or more years ago, or have you never, to your knowledge, offered a new member orientation? It looks like just about everybody. Okay. So it looks like about 20% of people in the last year, 26% 2 years ago. So it looks like there's a good number of clubs that have done it fairly recently, but there's also 21% of clubs that have, to your knowledge, never done it. So let's make sure in the next year, the 2021, 2022 Kiwanis year, we get that number up or down. I guess we want it to be 0. We want all clubs to do a new member orientation. Okay. And our final question, what brings you to this workshop? Are you a club membership committee member or officer? Are you a club officer? Are you a district officer, lieutenant governor, or executive officer? Are you just, are you the most important part, the member who's interested in this topic? Or did Brian and or Elise say that you have to be here?
I know at least one person who's going with that last answer.
I see that. It looks like one person has already responded that way. And it was not Brian or I. We actually can't answer, as the hosts, we can't answer the poll questions. So, although we did say that each other has to be here. Okay, it looks like just about everybody has responded to this. And the majority of people in this room are club officers. That's great for us to know, because I think we can cater this a little bit to you and your experiences as a club officer. Brian and I are both past presidents, and we'll be speaking about our experiences when we presented these to our clubs.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in, and these are 5 questions that we want to answer tonight. So these are kind of like the objectives for this workshop. First, why do an orientation? Second, what should members take away from an orientation? Third, what format works best? 4, what do we need to consider when planning a new member orientation? And 5, how do we design a presentation? And that will include a walkthrough of a presentation that I've used in my club that I found works successfully. So we'll actually show you an example that you'll be able to adapt in the end or use as inspiration for your own. So why do an orientation? And I know for a while when I was talking to some Kiwanians, they felt that, this is so basic. It's not that needed really, because someone should join Kiwanis and just be ready to jump in and they should know all this. And unfortunately, that's not the case. We recommend doing a new member orientation because, as Elise said, it's really the next step in the recruitment process. You have somebody who's shown interest in the organization. They've shown interest in your club. But unless you really give them that full explanation of all we do is Kiwanis, it may be a little harder to keep them around. So the big reason to do this is for them to learn the Kiwanis basics. Teach them about how we're structured. Teach them all those acronyms that we're always using and throwing around that not everybody really knows about. Teach them about the Kiwanis family and our service leadership programs and the impact we're making if you are a sponsor of a club. Or if you're not a sponsor of an SLP club, the work that we're doing as a broader organization to teach servant leadership. Talking about your club's important projects, the roles of your officers, there's so much to include. This also probably sounds very fundamental, but just take a moment and step back to when you joined Kiwanis and think about what your experience was. What knowledge did you come in with? More importantly, what knowledge did you not come in with? And what did your club do or not do to help bring you up to speed? A lot of times, I remember having this realization one day in a membership committee meeting. We never stop and think about what our own experience was and how we can work to improve that. So think about why and what information you would want to share, why it's important to level the playing field and make sure all members are on the same page about what we do and our impact. And inspiring new members to get involved. If nothing else, that should be your #1 reason. So someone doesn't just join and sit on the sidelines for a year and then decide, this isn't for me, I'm not interested in being involved. As Elise said, this can be one of your #1 retention tools, is sparking that inspiration and that drive for someone to really get involved in the club.
So what do we want our members to take away when they're sitting here in our new member orientation? We want to make sure that our members are able to talk about Kiwanis in a way that's helpful and useful, the way that they show that they know our organization and what they're now a part of. It's almost like, I don't know, we use this term in Kiwanis, the elevator speech. We want members to walk away from the new member orientation with their own elevator speech of what Kiwanis is, so they can tell other people, I just joined this organization. It's amazing. We have a global impact. We help serve the children of the world. We do all these great projects and you should join too. So then it further works as a recruitment tool. We want to make sure that our clubs have and our members have an understanding of the overall club function. Why do we have a board meeting? Why do we have club meetings? What's a service project versus a fundraiser? What are all these other, other topics that we talk about on a regular basis in terms of youth protection or, clubs, divisions, districts even. So we want to make sure that they understand really how the organization functions. We want them to understand why Kiwanis International is important to our community and to the global community. And we want to make sure that they know how they can participate. So this new member orientation can be the pathway that gets them involved in a committee that keeps them as a member of your club for the next 20 plus years. This is a really valuable opportunity for your club. And I would encourage all clubs to do this moving forward with all your new members. My dog just knocked on the door.
So there are some things to consider when you're thinking about how you're going to do a new member orientation and what kind of format you want. And whatever we say tonight, everything is prefaced or couched with do what works best for your club. So in some clubs, it works best to do a one-on-one orientation and just have someone sit down with a new member and really talk about the ins and outs of the club. Or in some cases, it works to do a group presentation. The picture that I've included on this slide is of my Kiwanis Club's last new member orientation. It was in person, but it was pre-pandemic. Socially distanced nonetheless, though. And we brought together a large group of new members and recent members to do it in person. So depending on what your club is interested in and how many new members you might have, you might choose one of those two options. And as you're planning out your format, it's important to know your audience. Think about, are your new members folks who've been around the club a while and may have some information or context about what you do? Or are they pretty fresh to Kiwanis and need a little bit more information as you're bringing them along? There are some clubs that do it at a club meeting, which is a great way to do like a refresher for your current or long-standing members, because there's so much to our organization that everyone could use a little bit of a reminder from time to time. Or at times, if you've got a good group of people, you could do it as a separate event. And either way, especially if you decide to do it in a larger group, my opinion, I think it works so well to invite your current members to attend. Having it not just be new members and you're the cohort, you're going to be going through this together, but having a group of current members who are there to welcome your new members, talk to them, get to know them, and really make Kiwanis a more personal experience, I think really adds a lot to it. And there's an option too, you could have multiple speakers who are presenting. When we did this presentation that night on the screen, we had 2 or 3 of us who were speaking and taking turns. And it's great because we have different perspectives, we have different things we bring to the presentation. Just like tonight, how Elyse and I are both presenting, we're going to bring you different ideas and different perspectives. And that could be a really good thing for new members.
So there are a few things that we want to consider as we're planning a new member orientation, is that we want to make sure that everyone feels welcome first. We want to make sure that we remember our experiences, like Brian said, going into a new meeting with people that you might not know in your community. There might be some discomfort from your members. So the more you can do to make everybody feel welcome, included, and involved, the better it'll be. You want to make sure that when you're talking about the different programs or facets of our organization, you're not using the acronyms and the club lingo without explaining them. Because while your club may say, we're going to take the SLPs to their decon and have an ELC, club members coming in don't know what all the acronyms mean. So we want to make sure that if we're using acronyms, we're clarifying what they are and their function and purpose in our club. We want to make sure that our presentation is not, it doesn't feel cliquey, it's inclusive. Everyone can kind of sit with everyone and mingle with everybody. Like Brian was just saying, we don't want to say, you're the new people, you have to sit over here at this table and you have to, be friends with each other. No, we all want to be friends. We're all part of this organization, in part at least, for the fellowship. You might want to include some sort of refreshments. This orientation is probably, maybe depending on how long you run it. If you're in Brian's club and Brian's running it, maybe an hour, but on average, maybe like 20 minutes, half an hour. You might want to have some refreshments, maybe some fresh baked cookies. I know my mom used to do that when we did ours in our club. She would always bring some sort of tasty treat. You want to make sure that it's a comfortable location for people to be sitting for half an hour. And you might want to consider AV equipment. So if you are doing a PowerPoint presentation like this, does the venue that you meet have a screen and a projector? My club used to meet in town hall, so it was very easy to do presentations because we would just bring a laptop, we would plug it in. And because we were a small club, we just did it as the program that night for our club meeting. So we didn't make it a separate event. We just did it that night. We did that. We did youth protection guidelines. We did everything all at once, Kiwanis information, galore. And then we kept moving with it. But definitely make sure to consider some of these things so that your members in attendance are feeling comfortable and welcome and included in the process.
For the record, it may be an hour-long presentation, but it's going to be the best hour that you've ever spent. And, I want to say, well, yeah, I'm going to jump back to something Elyse said about the importance of not being cliquey and inclusive. And I know in the past, our club has had to talk about that with some members and say, you have to remember, when we bring in new members, it's important to make sure that you're welcoming them and inviting them. And again, think back to your first experience. Were you welcomed or were you not? And how did that impact your initial experience with Kiwanis? And so just something you might want to think about, reminding your members. It's tough because when we all get together, it's exciting for us to see each other and talk and catch up and share our lives. But if you're someone on the outside, that comes off as, I don't belong here. So just keep that in mind. Not only should you strive to create that environment at an orientation, you should consider reminding your members to really be outgoing when they come to an orientation to make people feel welcome. And in order to make that the best hour that person has had and the most engaging presentation, Elise is laughing because, she says I talk too much, which I probably do. To create if you're going to do a presentation, create something that's visually appealing, something that's going to keep folks' attention. And for that, we highly recommend free resources from Kiwanis International. If you haven't already explored, take a couple minutes someday and go to kiwanis.org/brand. There is so much on there. One of the best downloads you can make is the little picture of the kid who's drinking out of the faucet. That's the Kiwanis brand book. And that's going to tell you about how to use the logo, what colors you can use when designing something for Kiwanis. You can see on the bottom those little circles, social media and logos. That's how the page is laid out with all these different options of what you might be looking for. And you can download free pictures. The images you've seen on our slides, we intentionally focused on mostly stock images from Kiwanis International to show you the visual appeal. It is important to have images from your own club too, which we'll get into, but if you need catchy images, they're all up there. You can also download the Kiwanis logo. You can even request an official logo customized for your club. That's all at kiwanis.org/brand. And the other rectangular picture you'll see is a screenshot of a template that Kiwanis provides for a new member orientation. So they've created something quite robust where you can plug and play and fill in information about your own club, but they also have important information filled in for you about Kiwanis International. So that gives you the opportunity to download a template, but as you'll see on the last bullet, you can still personalize it for your own club to really make it unique. We are a global organization, but we're also very local, very hyper local. So many clubs say it's that local impact that is what attracts members. So really personalize what you're doing to your club, but use some of these resources that are available to you.
In speaking about resources, I know this slide is probably really small on your screens, but we're going to share it in the Google Drive afterwards. Kiwanis International actually created a new member orientation checklist. So they came up with different sections and things that they would recommend that you add into this orientation that you're presenting. And we'll show you some components of that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the Kiwanis Club of Meriden's member orientation from 2019. So this is Brian's orientation from the last time he did this. And we're going to kind of highlight some areas that we think are really important for you to include. But this checklist will be available for you in the resources that we share at the end of this meeting, so that you guys can print it off and use it in planning your new member orientations. And if they're virtual and you want us to come, we would be happy to, right, Brian?
Absolutely.
We would love to support you. Okay, so you actually saw a picture of this earlier. Brian had a picture from his new member orientation, and this was the slide that was on the screen. But the first couple slides that you're going to be talking about and is in the recommended template or the offered template that Kiwanis made are all about Kiwanis. So what you're doing is talking about Kiwanis as an international global organization. So fundamentally, it's important to start with who we are as Kiwanians. What is a Kiwanian? What do we do? So you're going to want to talk a little bit about the motto, the mission, and the impact that Kiwanis has, because I think this information itself is so powerful. When people hear Kiwanis, it's kind of an abstract word. They might not know what that means. But if they hear we're a global organization of volunteers and we are dedicated to improving the world, one child and one community at a time. And not only do we say that as our mission, but we sponsor nearly 150,000 service projects annually. We devote more than 18.5 million hours of service annually. We raise more than $100 million annually. We're saying not only is this our mission, but we're fulfilling our mission. Oh, that's my dog Saxon. We are fulfilling our mission by doing lots of service projects and raising money and really walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So we want to talk about why we're here, why our organization exists, maybe touch on the fact that there are 7,000 clubs in almost 80 nations. I actually think that number might be outdated. We should look at that, Brian, because I think we're over 80 now. And that Kiwanis has been around since 1915, and it began in Detroit, Michigan. People might be interested in knowing the history of the organization. And we want to review the objects of Kiwanis, because this is, these are kind of our guiding principles. We want to make sure that people understand fully the organization that they're a part of. So we want to talk about, there's a couple slides here on the objects explaining what they are, and letting people know that we're really good people. We like service, we like helping people, but these are our objects. We want to make sure that we form enduring friendships and render altruistic service, and we want to build better communities. We're here for a purpose. We're not just a club that enjoys meeting for fellowship and having lunch together. We actually want to have an impact and make the world a better place.
And to build on to that, I just want to throw in, please don't be upset. I went up to a Rotary or a Lions meeting a couple of years ago. It might have been Rotary. And when they started their meeting, in unison, they recited not quite a pledge, but it almost sounded like their creed or what their organization is about. Very similar to how if you go to a Key Club meeting or to a Circle K meeting, they will start with their pledge. And they all knew it and internalized it. And ever since then, I have been on a campaign to make sure that everybody at least reads the objects of Kiwanis periodically at their meetings, because those 6 things define our organization. And it's really critical that we all at least have an understanding of them. So to echo Elise's points of incorporating those if you can into your orientation. And then it's also important, again, to strike that balance of talking about the international organization and also talking about your club. So give a quick overview of your club. As you can see here, it's a very by the numbers. The year we were chartered, we included the number of members we had, and then the composition of our board of directors, 7 officers and 10 directors. May seem so obvious to us, but think about if someone comes into your club brand new, how long it's going to take them to get that information if they aren't given it right up front. So just a quick dashboard of facts. For your club, depending on how you track things, you may be able to mirror the Kiwanis slide and say, we do X number of hours of community service. We give X number of dollars to organizations in our community and globally. That kind of quick facts is really important to demonstrating impact. And then, of course, talking about your meeting schedule, letting them know up front, here's how often we meet. If we meet for a meal, this is what we're going to pay. In our club, when we have luncheons, it's a set amount, $13. Some of your clubs may charge a quarterly or annual amount for meals, whether or not your members attend every one. You've probably already covered a lot of that with them before they've come in as a new member so that they know the expectations, but it doesn't hurt to cover it again as a reminder as to how your meetings work. Some clubs do potluck, others don't do meals. Now some may be doing virtual or hybrid meetings. Get all that out on the table. Board meetings too are something, it's always good to encourage a new member to come to at least one board meeting. Of course, they can't vote, but they can see how the club functions, the discussions and the conversations the board of directors is having. I know before I joined my club board and I heard our meetings, I mean, our meetings would go on and still go on for maybe an hour or 2 hours. I kept thinking, what on earth are they discussing? But when you go to them, you finally understand a lot of the discussions and votes that have to happen to operate a club. And so again, bring your new members along in that to help them understand and tell them right up front that they're always invited to a club board meeting. Club business, it's important to have new members understand what they have the rights to vote on as members and the decisions that the club board makes. And this may vary from club to club, but for the most part, a lot of this is standard. Your members are the ones who elect your club officers and the board. It also requires a vote of the members to change your club bylaws. The board, however, determines your club's policies, approves projects, controls the budget, applications for new members, and overall management of the club. And especially since some of these items are standard across all types of businesses, but not always. It's important to just give them an overview of how your club operates. And when you can, to talk about any traditions or history of your club that is really important to your members. This is a picture that we had taken 6 years ago, maybe, for our club's 85th anniversary. We're very fortunate that we have our original bell from 1930 and our original charter. The bell and the charter are all at all board meetings, and the bell is at all club meetings. And we felt it was really important for members to know why those items are so important and what they represent when we bring them out. So really making that personal connection to your club's history, if that's something that's important to you. Now, hopefully by the time your members have made it this far, where they've talked to you, they've agreed to join, they've applied, they've been voted on, they know that there are dues. So hopefully this is, old news to them, but it's good to reiterate what your annual dues are. Letting folks know that Kiwanis operates October 1st to September 30th, which is very different from many other places. That way they know that they're on a billing cycle, that every September, or if you bill in October, they'll be getting an invoice. And that's just important to make sure that it's clear and everybody is on the same page, so it's not a surprise. And your secretary will appreciate it. I know our club secretary, Melissa, is on here because they have a deadline of when they have to remove members without your club being billed at the beginning of the new year. And of course, as we've been talking about, it's so important to communicate we're a global organization. So let your members know with their payment of dues to you, they are automatically members of your club, of our district, New England and Bermuda, and of Kiwanis International, that dues is all inclusive. And they should know what comes with their membership. Of course, club communications and the ability to participate in projects and fundraisers and meetings and all the great things you do in your local community, as well as being able to go to district conferences, international conferences. In our club, we have a club bulletin. And so that comes out, now we've been doing, once to twice a month during the pandemic, but it's often 2 to 3 times a month, letting them know, expect communication from our club every week, every 2 weeks, however often you plan on sending out information. Letting them know about the Kiwanis magazine. That magazine, that publication has so much good information. There you go. Elyse has it, if you can see her. The latest magazine that's come out. So if you haven't received it, it should be in your mailboxes soon. Let them know that that's one of the member benefits, that they get this regular newsletter from International, and you can get ideas and really inspiration and fuel what you're trying to do in your communities as well. And that there is insurance coverage when you're at Kiwanis projects. That's a really big seller, in that they are covered when they are attending a Kiwanis event or project, and that comes with their dues.
The next couple components are things that you want to highlight, things that make your club different and special and have an impact in the community. So in this slide, we're showing you a couple pictures from the Kiwanis Club of Merredin's fundraisers to show that they are a diverse group of members who have different experiences, like Kiwanis Comedy Nights, which is a fundraiser they do. They sell a whole lot of food. They sell strawberry shortcake and fried dough and I don't know, probably other things too. But they also look at cow poop. Like, how fun is that? They do a cow plop fundraiser. And that's something that is unique to, well, it's not unique to their club. Their club isn't the only one that does it, but it's really a big event in their area. It's well known in the Merredin, Connecticut area. My dogs are so excited about new member orientation. Can you hear them? They're loving it. But this is something that the Kiwanis Club of Merredin does, and they've done it for years, and they want to show everyone, this is us, this is what we do. We do this really fun fundraiser. So they highlighted, there were a couple more slides in here. Brian was trying to show you guys, I don't know, like 200 slides, but I made him pare it down to his top 3 favorite fundraisers that his club did in 2019. But you want to let the prospective members, or I guess the new members, know that we do fun things. We do fun fundraisers. We also do really fun service projects.
And thank you for that, Elise. Yes, and highlighting your service project is a really important way to show how you're active and often using the money that you're raising. So on our next slide, you'll see one of our club's projects is caroling at senior homes. And so what I find really important is, up until this point in the presentation, there's been a lot of facts, and we've had a lot of bullets on the screen, a lot of text. When you can, throw pictures in, rather than having a bullet point that says we go caroling in nursing homes, put a picture. And what was important in how we structured this presentation was, where possible, we put the date on there. Let your members know kind of the ongoing schedule for your year. Do you have busy times? Do you have slower times? And what can they expect to be involved in? Our next slide talks about our story walk project that we do. And so this gives you a chance to show maybe how you interact with kids. The last slide was on how you work with the elderly in your community. Show how you work with kids, the impact you're having on the actual people in your community. Next slide. And this was a butterfly and bee habitat cleanup we did. It was a chance to highlight a spring project we do and how we engage our service leadership programs. So action shots, post photos. I think Governor Gala is on here. She can talk to you all about how to choose great photos for marketing and press and inspiring people. Get those pictures of your members having a good time and really convey what Kiwanis is through showing your projects. And again, our bike rodeo, we're able to show ourselves as a group, but also how we work with kids. And then I think our last service project is our public speaking and essay contest. So what I love about this is it shows Kiwanians, it shows kids, but it also shows how we get our brand out there. Excuse our banner on the left. If you were at Gala's presentation, you will know that that birdcage logo is no longer acceptable, but that's our old banner. But again, show highlighting different events and ways that members can get involved throughout the year.
You also want to make sure that you highlight and explain the organizations and the programs in your community that your club supports. So for example, the Kiwanis Club of Merredin supports the soup kitchen financially. It looks like they make a financial contribution there. They have a Kiwanis Computer Center. So if you go to their, I believe it's their public library, you can go and see this big sign hanging that says that they have funded this computer center. They support the Girls Inc., the STEM lab, and they made a list, and there were a couple slides in there that we didn't include, but they made a list of not necessarily all inclusive, but here are some of the organizations in the community that we support. Because as a new member, I might really love the Special Olympics and want to get involved with them. And I see here that the Kiwanis Club of Meriden has a connection with them. So I might want to connect with them so that I can continue my support of the Special Olympics. Or maybe there's an organization in our community that the Kiwanis Club is missing that I think would be a great partnership opportunity. I can look at this list and say, this other organization would be great. I would love to help bring this to Kiwanis because it seems like the mission and the vision of the organizations are similar. You want to emphasize the impact that Kiwanis has in your community. We support our community by supporting all of these organizations, plus the others. If you notice on here, it also has the Kiwanis Foundation of New England and the Kiwanis Children's Fund. So, our district and international fundraising arms of our organization, so that they understand we do support Kiwanis foundations as well as local foundations and organizations and programs.
And really, one of the hallmarks of Kiwanis is our Kiwanis family, and the fact that we are a group of organizations beyond just our specific Kiwanis clubs. Next slide. And by that, I mean our service leadership programs. Elyse and I are both graduates of the service leadership programs. We met almost 20 years ago. We were in neighboring high schools in different towns. We worked blood drives together. And then we both joined Circle K, and then we've come into Kiwanis. And so we believe in this very deeply, and you should too. To talk about our impact on being able to groom the next generation of leaders to be servant leaders, to think about their leadership by how they serve and give back to others. As you can see on the screen, clarifying those acronyms and explaining what our SLPs are. And talking about how if you've joined Kiwanis because you love kids and you love working with kids, we have the opportunity for you to be an advisor to kids of any age. We have from elementary school through college, and we even have a program for adults with disabilities, and talk about how your members can get involved. If you don't have service leadership programs, consider starting some. That could be a great way to recruit some new members, or talk about the impact that Kiwanis as an organization has through SLPs, because that's important to talk about too. In our club, we have a whole range of SLP clubs, and so we just included the names of the schools to kind of make it more personal to our local area. And this actually inspired at least one person to step up and be an advisor to one of our clubs. So it gave an immediate way for a member to jump in and get involved. If you do have service leadership programs, highlight how you work with them. I love, again, we put some great stock images in to show you what was involved and what resources International provides, but make it local. Show what you do with your students and show their smiling faces as you're doing projects, or, this is our installation and training night for our SLP officers. On our next slide, we highlight our Super Bowl food drive, and those are all members of our SLP clubs. And it gives us a chance to really showcase how we work in partnership with them. And then in our case, we do a night where we recognize our students. So again, talking about not only the clubs you sponsor, but really the impact that you're making with them.
If your club has its own foundation, you want to make sure that you explain what that means. So a lot of our clubs have a 501c3 or maybe a 501c4 foundation that they have started and they've had for a number of years. For example, the Kiwanis Clubs of Meriden was established in 1995. There are specific programs that it supports. It looks like awards, contests, projects, and they fundraise through the Cow Plop fundraiser. So you want to make sure that a new member understands how your club raises money, not only for the club, but if there is a foundation and how money is distributed from there. And you also want to talk a little bit beyond the club to make sure that new members understand that it's more than just the Kiwanis Club of Meriden. The Kiwanis Club of Meriden is wonderful and fantastic, but there's a greater structure here. Kiwanis International has a structure that includes the club as a component, but also has divisions. So for example, the Kiwanis Club of Meriden is grouped in with, is that 10 other clubs, 9 other clubs, 10 total clubs in the central Connecticut area. This is 2019, so it's a little bit outdated, but their lieutenant governor at the time was a woman named Linda. So showing her picture, so if she showed up at an event, the new members would say, oh, that's our lieutenant governor. She's our liaison to the district board, kind of explaining to your new members the role of lieutenant governor and why that's important. And explaining that the clubs within that division will meet once or twice a year. They will meet to elect the next lieutenant governor. They'll be in constant communication, hopefully, and they can do projects together. They could do socials together. So you understand that there are clubs in communities surrounding yours that also have Kiwanis and, their own essentially chapters of our organization. And you want to explain that there is also a district structure. I think Brian wanted me to talk about this slide because it's embarrassing for me to see my face on the slide. But you want to talk about the New England district, the fact that it was organized in 1918, that we have 21 divisions, and I think we're at about 143 clubs right now. This is a couple years old, but we want to make sure that they understand that as the 6 New England states and the country of Bermuda, we have an impact as well. And we have a foundation that supports clubs and important causes, that we do have what we call our district leadership that makes decisions on behalf of the clubs and helps to support them. But not only that, our district is part of a number of districts that make up Kiwanis International, and that we cover 80 nations and geographic areas. We're headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're governed by an international board and managed by professional staff. So while the boots on the ground people, all of us, we're volunteers, there are paid staff members that help to support us, that create the marketing materials, that double check the membership rosters, and we can access if we have membership questions. But also knowing that there are 200,000 adult members globally. And this was a picture of International President Polly Lott, who unfortunately passed away of cancer in 2019. But you would want to have pictures on these slides because it helps personalize it, right? Your club members want to know who our district governor is or who the lieutenant governor is, because they will hopefully see them at events that they go to.
And it's also important to talk about our service impact globally. So those of you who may have been in Kiwanis for a couple of years or more will remember the Eliminate project, which was our global service project starting in 2010. In which we set out to raise $110 million to work with UNICEF and eliminate maternal neonatal tetanus. And what an impact Kiwanis as an organization made by raising this money. And the number of lives, tens of thousands of lives we've saved by helping to eliminate this deadly disease. And that's an impact that's so important to share with members, knowing that their work locally is really having a global impact too. And some of you who may have been around in that 20+ year category may remember the work Kiwanis did around iodizing salts, the IDD campaign. Lots of different work that Kiwanis does that you can really showcase to help make that connection to international. And what I think is the most important part of a new member orientation is the call to action. Let members know what's next, how they can get involved, what's in store for them. Now, you see on the screen things that you can tell them are their options, attending meetings, service projects, interclubs, explaining what interclubs are, of course, serving on committees, being an SLP advisor, attending district conferences, running for office, spreading the word about Kiwanis. It may seem so obvious, and you may say, well, every member has an open invitation to these, but as a new member, it probably doesn't feel that way. You want to make sure that every member knows that all of these opportunities they may read about in your emails or your newsletters or hear about in meetings are open invitations to them, and let them know what it means to be getting involved in one of these ways. And the next slide, I think, is one of, again, the most important, is getting them right then, and maybe not right then and there, but letting them leave with thinking about what committee would you like to be involved with. You know, at this time when we did our training, these were the committees that were meeting at the time, the most active given the time of year. And we said, you know, we really want you to consider being on one of these committees. And I know a lot of times it's a little daunting to have to make a commitment on the spot, but just let them leave with that, or give them a handout that has the names of the committees with a little description of what they do, and make sure somebody follows up to say, it was so great to meet you and see you. We'd love you to be involved. Is there something you'd like to get involved with in particular? Make sure they jump right in. And the more active you can get them from the start, the more likely you are to keep them as a new member. And then lastly, make sure they leave knowing all of the places where they can get information. Your website, any social media accounts you have. Make sure they know the link to the district website to learn about district conferences, and same for Kiwanis.org. You know, let them know there's resources and tools and member information. If you have a club email address, any of the above, make sure that they leave with at least a reference to know where they can go for more info.
And one of the things, if you know Brian or I at all, we are all about the tangibles. We want to give you something to walk away with. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a file in the Google Drive. There is going to be a downloadable new member orientation PowerPoint that you can download and customize for your club. There's going to be the new member orientation checklist that we spoke about earlier. We're going to drop in a copy of the Kiwanis brand guide, and we're going to give you a copy of the Kiwanis Club of Meriden, the one that we showed you this evening, their presentation, because we want to make sure that you have all of the resources that you need to have a successful new member orientation PowerPoint or presentation. So we're really excited about that. And right now, if there are any questions, we can answer those in the chat for you. Or if you sent them in the chat, Brian can read them to us now.
So we have a couple that have come in the chat. So also, if you're watching us live on Facebook, you can leave your comments on the feed and we'll grab them from there. The first question is, should we do a new member orientation every year? Elyse, do you want to start with your thoughts on that?
Sure. I'm inclined to say yes, that it should be done every year, but I understand the hesitation. If you don't actually have a new member that year, you might not feel the importance of it. But I think that there's something to take away every time. So even if you update slides, or maybe you've been a member for 2 years and then now you really understand the structure a little bit better, I think there is always a takeaway for doing this. We used to do it when I was in a different club. We used to do it every year to all members. That was part of our programming in September or early October, as just part of our normal course of action. So I would recommend doing it fairly frequently. So probably annually makes the most sense, but you also have to do what's best for your club. So if your club hasn't really recruited a lot of new members in the last decade, you probably should, but you might want to, see if your members are interested in watching it. There are also, sometimes updates. So for example, if you do this presentation in conjunction with talking about youth protection guidelines, those changed 2 years ago. So if somebody were interested in being an advisor to a service leadership program, they would need to know any of the updates that happened for that.
I agree. Second all that. We got a question. Could you share how your club does your story walk program for kids? I will encourage you to come to our June 23rd workshop. which is going to be all focused on club literacy projects. And we'll be talking extensively about Storywalk. But just as a 15-second elevator pitch, Storywalk is a campaign that was started by a woman in Vermont, actually, right here in New England. And it's now grown all over the world, where you take the pages of a children's book and you blow them up and you put them along a walking route in the community to encourage families to read together and read outdoors. So we'll talk a lot more about that project and our impact with it, but that's called Storywalk if you want to look it up and find some more information. Okay, our next question, we have a few more that have come in, and again, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. My club is very traditional, and I don't know if they would do something like this. Any tips? Elise, you want to kick it off?
I would wonder what the hesitation is for your club, because Brian's club is also a very traditional club and they've done a new member orientation on a regular basis. So is it that your members are a little bit concerned about the rollout of technology and having somebody to manage that? I would understand that. But it's not really, I mean, I would argue that in terms of things that we could be asking clubs to do, it's low on the scary scale, because it's really, we're just talking about our club and our vision and our mission and the organization as a whole. So I would encourage you, if you are interested in doing this for your club, to do it, or to have them at least try it. Because if you try something once and it doesn't work and your club hates it, you don't have to do it again. But if you try it and everybody's, walks away learning something, or you have members who are more engaged, then it was worth it.
Yeah, and to jump on that too, I mentioned earlier, do what works best for your club. And if you think this is going to take a little time for them to get used to, consider just doing more of a casual orientation. Get a couple members or officers to take a new member out for coffee or for lunch and just talk through it. If you think scheduling a presentation or something is going to be too much, ease into it. But as Elise said, give it a try. And if it doesn't go as well, you can not do it again or find a different way to approach it, or send us an email and we can talk some sense into your fellow Kiwanians as to why these are important, because it really adds so much value to your club. Another question we got, for those of us who are not tech savvy, can you explain again how we get the templates? Elise, do you want to maybe share your screen and pull up the confirmation email and show how folks can get into those resources? I don't have any fun music to sing or play while she's looking for the right window to share. And what we'll do is, again, we're going to be showing you right now how to get into our Google Drive of resources. And this is information we've pulled for you, so you don't have to dig for some of the items. Do you want to walk through it, Elise?
Yes. I would like to implore you to ignore the 27,000 tabs on the top of my screen. I hope nobody else's windows look like this. But this is the email you received at 8 a.m. this morning. In this email, there's it tells you that the session will be recorded and shared. And then down here, can you see where my mouse is? There's something that says any workshop materials will be uploaded to our Google Drive here. So you will, if you click this link, this is a link, you will be taken into a folder. The folder is organized by month that we've been doing these workshops. So for example, there is a May folder. There is only 2 workshops in it right now because tonight's resources are not in there. But all you have to do is click on the month of the workshop, and then there will be a folder in here that will say planning a new member orientation. So for example, I'm just going to click on a different folder. When you click on it, there will be resources in there. So for example, this is a copy of a previous workshop, and then the workshop interclub list that interclub Chair David Griffin has made for us. So those are in there for every workshop through December, or that we've done since December. But all of the resources will be in a folder. So when you click into here, you'll click May. You will see a folder that says planning a new member orientation. When you click that, there will be all the resources that we've spoken about this evening in there.
And when you find a resource in there, if you're not familiar with Google Drive, just click on it twice to preview it. Or if you want to download it right away, you can. So if she just double clicked on the presentation, and that'll pull up the slides from that night. The top right, you'll see a little downward arrow that lets you download the file. Or if you're still in the folder itself before clicking on the resource, you can right click. And that will pull up a menu of options, and you can go down to download, and you can download it right to your computer. And that works for any of the files, whether it's a presentation or the attendance, or if we have additional resources. And of course, we'll also we'll be able to share, and you'll see in the copy of the presentation, the link to the brand website, kiwanis.org/brand, and that's where you can go and download some additional resources. There are two more questions I want to get to really quickly. I know we're just at about an hour. Elise, a good request came in. Would you be able to show how we can access recordings of the workshops?
Yes.
If you want to go Facebook, I'll drop you or you already have the link to the YouTube maybe directly.
I have a link to YouTube, so we'll do that one first.
Okay. And to answer the most recent question, how long are these resources available? For the foreseeable future. We will have those up. We don't have any plans of taking them down right now.
I don't know if you can hear, it is thunderstorming here, so my dogs are a little bit nervous. I don't know if you can hear them arooing underneath me. Okay, let's see. I'm going to share YouTube. I just shared a link with you guys. So this is our YouTube page channel. It's a channel, isn't it? And YouTube. Yeah, YouTube channel. I'm still getting with the lingo too. So if you go under, I'm going to click on playlists. There are a couple different topics in here. So we did 2020 virtual district convention. All those presentations are in here. But if you wanted to look for the 2021 virtual workshop series, so that's what we're in right now, the 24 workshops since December, you can click on that and it's probably going to start auto playing. Oh, look, Patricia. And if you scroll down, you'll see on the right-hand side here, it is every workshop that we have done. There were a couple of them that didn't get recorded because there were a lot of breakout rooms or they were breakout room heavy. So it didn't make sense to put the recordings in here. But if you look on the right side here where I'm kind of scrolling a little bit, all the presentations that we have. So we have 21, it'll be 22 out of 24 will be in there for you guys. And then Brian, did you want me to do YouTube or Facebook as well?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay. I guess this is why I'm the technology expert. Okay. Give me 1 second. So if you go to, this is our New England and Bermuda district Facebook page. I'll put the link in the chat. This functions like a regular page. You can see the posts that the district puts in. There's photos. Oh, look, there's our live video. So there are, you should be able to see them all. And I should know where you see them all, because I should have this information. Is it under photos? Let's see. So if you click, No, not photos. It's under videos. So you click the down arrow for more, and it shows you videos. You click videos. It shows us the live video that we're in right now. Oh, look, there's us. That's like literally what's happening this moment. If you, it was like Inception there for a minute, the movie Inception. But if you keep scrolling, it is a collection of all of the virtual workshops that we have done since December. Does this also include the ones from August, Brian? Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of resources here. If you are Facebook people, there are a lot of different workshops in here. Okay. Was there more that you wanted me to show, Brian? Okay.
I think that's good. And we're going to wrap it up with one final question that came in of, let me just pull it up so I can make sure I get this right. Who should present new member orientation? That's a great question. And again, I think that it varies from club to club. I think the most important thing is to make sure you have a presenter or multiple presenters who are dynamic and will be engaging and will make it an exciting presentation, but kind of almost an experience of its own for your new members. You want to get them excited and eager about this new world of Kiwanis they've just joined. So that could be your club officers. It could be you if you are a membership chair. It could just be a longstanding member who knows a lot about Kiwanis and is really eager to share it. You know, you want to get, if you have multiple people, those who have a really good rapport and dynamic, just like the Elise and Brian show you saw here tonight, people who can play off of each other and hopefully make it a good experience. Elise, anything you want to add or any closing thoughts you want to add? No, she's shaking her head. No, she doesn't want to talk anymore. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up our presentation. I have a couple of just quick last announcements, and then we'll let everybody get on with your evenings. Thank you so much to all of you who have really stuck it out till the end. Hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Yeah, give yourselves a big round of applause for sticking it out. As we wrap up, I see a couple more that are on their way in. Please make sure that if you have not yet, you introduce yourself in the chat with your name and your club. I have heard from our amazing Dave Griffin, our interclub liaison, who has told me that we have 13 clubs here so far. So if you have enough members here tonight, you get to count 13 interclubs on your secretary report. And he said to note that it appears that we have a club here for the first time, and that's Claremont, New Hampshire. So let's all give a big round of applause to Claremont and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope we'll see you again. So again, please continue introducing yourselves if you haven't already. Tonight brings us to the end of our membership month sessions, which is sad, but we have more for you coming up next week. We're moving into June, which will be, we'll talk about it in a moment, but it'll be the last month of our monthly workshops going forward. We have a really great lineup for you. June 2nd, next Wednesday, we have Joseph Lepper, who is the president of the Kiwanis Club of Springfield, Massachusetts, also a past Key Club International president, who is going to be talking to us about strategic planning for clubs and will give really great framework and ideas for creating your own club strategic plan. On June 9th, we are presenting Chartering SLP Clubs, and we're going to have members of Key Club and Circle K, and as well as our district administrators for Key Club and Circle K, talking about how you can charter SLP clubs like K Kids, Builders Club, Key Club, CKI, Action Club in your own community. So make sure you come, invite your officers, and bring any questions you have about the nuts and bolts of chartering a club. On June 16th, we'll be providing the workshop Using Technology to Organize Your Club. So we will be going over a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about platforms like Google Drive. And so if you have more questions about the interface we showed you tonight, Square, Venmo, a lot of different platforms and technologies you can use to improve your club organization. June 30th is the session I mentioned earlier. I'll be facilitating a panel discussion about literacy-focused service clubs. So as of today, I believe we have 6 different Kiwanis clubs that will be presenting on projects that they do in their own communities that focus on literacy. And we'll be able to hear all about them for 4 or 5 minutes, and then you'll be able to ask some questions. So if you want to do some more around books and reading and literacy, make sure you join us tonight and bring some questions. And then our final workshop for June will be on the 29th, and you're really in for a treat for this: how to build diverse community partnerships. We have 2 key club members from Fairfield Ludlow High School in Connecticut who are presenting that evening to wrap out our month. And they're going to talk about how they did work with community organizations to build community partnerships. So they're going to provide resources, action steps, and most importantly, that inspiration to really jumpstart community partnerships in your area. So Elyse will drop in the chat a link to the registration. If you haven't done so already, it's there. Excellent. Click on that link and sign up. And please, if you have a chance, copy it and just share it with your fellow club members and encourage them to join us next month. After June, we will be transitioning into Wednesday evening officer training. And it's not just for club officers. Anyone who's interested in being a club leader is invited to join us. So those will be Wednesday evenings in July and early August, and those will start at 6:30 p.m. We hope to have the schedule available very soon. Please alert your club officers who are starting in October to keep an eye out for those registrations. This will count as their officer training for distinguished awards and other criteria, but most importantly, they're good opportunities to meet other officers with the same position around the district. Following our July and early August education, we'll invite you to join us in person for our district convention, which will be August 20th to 22nd in Leominster, Massachusetts. We'll have lots of great workshops and exciting things going on that weekend. And we'll also be electing the district board for the next year. Then beginning in September, our virtual series will resume as a once-a-month virtual workshop. So we will continue with the education, just on a slightly reduced schedule, but we'll still be able to provide you with great learning opportunities from home as we move into the fall and beyond. So remember to go onto our district Facebook page, Facebook group, and newenglandkiwanis.org to learn more about not only the virtual workshops, but all the other things the district has to offer. And as you saw from Elyse, you can go on YouTube and Facebook to get recordings of these workshops to share with your club members or to rewatch yourselves. So with that, I want to make sure we give a thanks to our District Education Committee, Elyse, Judy Barrett, and Dave Griffin, who helped behind the scenes to make these workshops successful. As I said at the beginning, we're on our 24th week, and this team is really doing so much to provide this education for you. And with that, we have finished our workshop for tonight. Special thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope you left with some new ideas and inspiration for new member orientation. Hope you are all safe and doing well, and we will see you next week for our session on strategic planning. Have a great night, everybody.